Alright, hello everyone. Today I'm going to tell you the story of my grid mod, which has in fact become, or has always been, I think the second most downloaded mod. Yeah, after the official Small Trees mod. So if you want the 30-second story, the reason why it's the most downloaded is because it was the first one. Because I released it super early on release day. But let's tell a story here. So I'll take you back to the beta. I managed to join the beta pretty late. Um, Probably because I wasn't on the most recent Windows update or something. But in any case, when I did join the beta, I was instead of playtesting the multiplayer like I probably should have been doing, or like we were supposed to be doing, what I did instead was poke around in the game files. Look for new random map scripting things, but also look to see how moddable things were, because the grid at the time in the beta was atrocious. Let me show you kind of what that looked like. Not like this. This is my grid. It was more like this. This was the dark grid at the time, and I don't know if you feel the same way as I do, but to me that looks like a spreadsheet. That's, a grid should be faint. It shouldn't be in your face like that. But there were two settings. There was also a light setting, so I thought, yes, let us try the light setting. And the light setting looked like that, which meant it was white. Or, well, at the time it was sort of bluish, but it was just as obtrusive and thick. So what I did is I went and dug into the game files to figure out if I could make a grid mod in the same way that grids had been made for the HD edition. And the way that was done, I'm just entertaining you here with stuff to ignore what I'm doing, but the way that was done, it was the terrain files were just PNGs basically in the HD edition. So you just take the PNG file, overlay a little grid in the file and the terrain texture file itself, and you'd have a grid. You have to make sure it was the right size, make it pixel perfect and so on. It's a little bit more tricky in DE for the simple reason that they changed the file format to use DDS, which is a direct draw surface file. Ultimately, it's not that much work. It just required downloading some plugins and so on to be able to work with them properly. So what I did is I made this faint grid, and I posted some screenshots of it on the beta forum. And people were so interested in it that I actually offered it as a download from my Dropbox during the beta for people to use so that they could actually have a reasonably faint grid to use during the beta. I also made a couple decisions that are different from the official one, in that I decided that water terrains should not have a grid on them because you can't build on water, or any terrain you can't build on, except there are a few where the same terrain texture is used both for a buildable and a non-buildable one, or there's layering. So in the end, I put it on all the land terrains, but not on the water terrains. And let me just plop up an overlay for a moment. Actually, no. So that was very, that received a lot of support, and my hope was that when the game was released, the grid would then be properly fixed, and there would be no need for my grid mod. But when I booted up the game on launch day, it still had the atrocious-looking black and light grid. So initially the mod servers were completely overloaded, but I would say about a couple hours after launch, maybe 2 hours or so, I uploaded my grid mod, which I'd made during the beta, as an actual mod. So it's one of the first mods, and a whole bunch of people subscribed to it because, of course, the grid still looked shit like like this. And eventually that did get improved, where it was, you know, a lot fainter. It actually looked reasonable. I think that was maybe a month after release. Unfortunately, that was reverted again at some point. I think most people just kept using my grid at that point. There was also, I don't know, not too long after release, I ran into an issue where my grid mods disappeared. And the reason that happened was because they'd been flagged. And the reason that happened is just because the mod system was set up so if anything receives, you know, a certain number of flags, a pretty low number, like 5 or whatever, it would automatically be taken down. And just by virtue of being incredibly popular, my mod had gotten flagged 5 times and was taken down. I think it also happened to the official Small Trees mod even. Silly as that is. So then that was fixed, you know, that's an honest mistake in their mod system. That's, you know, instead of using a Steam Workshop, they made their own mod system that requires more work. And this year, though, eventually they did go and implement a proper grid where you could choose your own. You could choose whether it's white or black, how white or black it is, and also whether or not to show it at all. Now I need to quickly check where that setting even was. There we go, terrain grid display. They made a proper grid. It took a few months, but now if you're using my grid mod, you should actually take a look at the official grid because it's now in a pretty good state. I hope I've set it up properly. Yeah, that's basically the final message. I mean, I told you sort of the history of my mod. The reason it was popular is because... Alright, it's not being shown. Oh, right, because I said only 4. Yes, yes, yes. So if I have a camel archer, he's ranged. Alright, let's place a building. I think it might only be if you're actually building something at the moment. Alright, I might have to test this. Tower. Watchtower. Oh yeah, you can see it very faintly. I need to make it less faint so you can see it better. I made it super faint and white. So you can actually now, you know, toggle it however you want. See, now you have a reasonably thing, but if I'm not doing this tower, if I were placing a boyar, I guess I would still see it. Oh, come on. Grid, prove me wrong. Alright, let's test the scenario. You should check out the official grid, though, is the bottom line, right? So if you click on a tower, you see the grid. If you deselect it, you don't. Click on a ranged unit, you see it. So that's, and this is a melee unit, you don't see it. So what I just want, you know, to take a look at the official grid. It's actually pretty good now. You can set it so it just appears for buildings, just for ranged units, or for both buildings and ranged units, or all the time. But you can also keep using my grid. I will keep using my grid. I enjoy it. So, thanks for coming to watch. I hope you enjoyed the video. That's all. Have a good time.